in now, Georgia Congressman Buddy Carter. He's a member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee and the House Budget Committee. His district includes the Port of Savannah. Congressman, thank you for being with us. And first of all, if I could get you to tell us more about the completion of this new rail system that Governor Brian Kemp, he announced it on Friday. I understand that it had been under construction for 4 years. It is comprised of 9 tracks. It's run by the Georgia Port Authority. It costs $238 million. It allows the port to operate as many as 6 10,000-foot trains at one time. And then, of course, there's the $8 million infusion to open temporary container yards around the region. So tell us more about it and how much success are you expecting as a result?
Well, certainly it's going to help, but I want to make one thing very clear now. This $8 million did not come from Build Back Better. It did not come from the bipartisan infrastructure plan. This came from projects from before that saved $8 million. It was just redirected. So it's not a result of any infrastructure plan that we've seen. And kudos to the Georgia Ports Authority. They're doing everything they can to address this situation, and it is a bad situation. We're having to wait 3 times as long with containers as we have in the past, and that's impacting small businesses especially because they can't get goods onto their shelves, and many of them are going bankrupt. And it's causing people, it's causing inflation, more inflation. It's causing prices to rise even more. The Georgia ports, especially in the Savannah, that container port there, it's one of the least congested, one of the most well-run ports in the nation, and that's the reason for success. And yes, we are trying to get more in rail. And yes, this $8 million is going to help to transfer some of these outlying inland ports. They'll become essentially inland ports, and it will relieve some of the congestion.
Well, that's good to hear because Vice President Harris says the bipartisan infrastructure bill will help broaden your port activity capabilities. But I understand that you say labor unions get in the way of operating ports 24/7. So I ask you, is there some sort of way that you could maybe increase productivity? I don't know, work with the union leaders somehow to make sure that these longshoremen can work 24/7, maybe stagger the shifts, but yet also make sure that they're all safe?
Well, and we are doing just that in Savannah, and we have a good relationship with the labor unions here in Savannah, and they're doing their part. But it's out west, particularly on the West Coast, where the labor unions are causing so much trouble. And this is, this is where the Biden economic policies are really hurting us because they're trying to push so much toward the labor unions. If we could just get the government out of the way, then our ports would run so much better. Joe Biden is the most anti-worker president that we've ever had. He is trying to do everything he can to stop people from working and become dependent on the government. And that's causing a lot of our problems. What we need is for the government to get out of the way.
Listen, I don't have President Biden here to respond, so I'm going to have to move on. I'm sure somehow he would disagree with you, but that's up to him, not me. So I'm going to move on, sir. If returning to the rail, would you say, rail transportation, if that's the solution, that won't help right, it won't help right now, as you know. We're talking about putting stuff on trains and getting from one end of the country to the other. But how do you propose that we rectify the current truck driving? You've got shortage of drivers. Is it better hours? Increase their pay? I know these are run by private companies, but I know you said you don't want the government involved, and I understand what you're saying. But is there any way the government can somehow help temporarily so Americans can get what they need for Thanksgiving and Christmas? They're around the corner.
Absolutely. There is a lot of ways that the government can help. For instance, the government will not allow any trucks over 10 years old to be able to transfer cargo. And the regulations, if they can be relaxed, at least in time or long enough for us to get caught up some, that would help tremendously. That's an example of what I'm talking about here when I'm saying the government get out of the way. If they could do away with some of these regulations that are in place, that would help us tremendously. You're right. We need more trucks. We need more truck drivers. And they are working diligently now as we go along. And what's the Biden administration doing? Now they're going to force mandates in the way of vaccines. That's going to decrease the number of truck drivers that we have. That's exactly what we don't need.
Well, we know the president is really busy this week, but I'd imagine you could get a meeting with him and give him your,
I'd
direct.
love to.
Well, if you do, you should ask. You request a meeting, and then after you have that meeting, you come back and talk to me and tell me all about it.
I will do just that.
Thank you, Congressman Carter. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care.